It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. Two races this weekend decided by last lap passes, and a dominant performance in the Cup Series is taken away by the heavy hand of NASCAR penalties, the biggest of the year. What more can we talk about? How about a champion driver with a new ride to start 2019? He's Corey, I'm Chris, and this is the C&J Speedway Review. Welcome back, everybody, to the C&J Speedway Review. My name is Chris Burns, the jabroni part of the Loki and Jabroni Show, airing every Tuesday night live on YouTube and downloadable Wednesdays wherever you steal your favorite podcast from. And it is my pleasure to introduce to you, he is the Prince of Peabody, he is the Statmaster Deluxe, the K1 Racer, the Gimmick Chaser, he is the leader of NASCAR IndyCar Central, Miss Chelsea's Ride or Die, Mr. Co-host to you, and in just 11 days, he is going to be all the way live, flag-to-flag coverage for the Ford EcoBoost 400 Championship Sunday. His name is the one and only Corey Huffnagel. Corey, how the hell are you doing tonight?
Well, all I could just say is that's a really great intro, and from the looks of it, you kind of sound like an auctioneer saying all that stuff. But no, I mean, I'm doing pretty good. As far as I know, I'm getting another year older, and next Wednesday I'm going to be another year older, going to be 26. But after that, thank you. But no, we had some really good, exciting racing this weekend, and of course, the only thing that I'm really quite surprised at was NASCAR bringing down the big penalty for the Ford team of Kevin Harvick. And so when I first read this article this afternoon, I thought to myself, 40 points. The only thing I can think of is 40 points, because whenever NASCAR hands out an L1 penalty, it'll usually be like 10 points, 15 points. But today, giving it out 40 points, especially coming playoff time, I think this is a classic example of, now, NASCAR is just telling these guys, all right, so if you guys bend the rules just a little bit, this is what we're going to do. And it's not what happened with the car. It was mostly what happened with the spoiler. And I was actually listening on the radio this afternoon. I guess NASCAR gives out the teams the spoilers when it comes to Daytona and Talladega. Other than those two racetracks, they get the spoilers from the different manufacturer companies, so they have them in their team shop, so they pretty much either fabricate it or adjust it or do it whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying this is what happened with Kevin Harvick on Sunday, but this might have happened before the race, this might have happened during the race, maybe after the race. I don't know.
Look, I look back to that race, and no one came near Kevin Harvick to do damage to a spoiler that would cause that much of a disparity that NASCAR would have to look into it and levy such a high penalty. I'm going to go back to your 40 points. Look, this is the playoffs. The 8 drivers that remain, the 4 that are going to go forward after next Sunday at Phoenix, they're going to be watched closer than everybody else. The L1 penalty, I get. And if I can just read the story real quick. Where is it? NASCAR penalized the team for violating Section 20.4.12 A and B in regard to the spoiler. NASCAR stated that the vehicle spoiler must conform to the CAD file and drawing. Spoilers must be used exactly as supplied by the manufacturer. The quote from Stuart Haas: "We worked tirelessly across every inch of our race cars to create speed, and unfortunately, NASCAR determined we ventured into an area not accommodated by its rulebook. We will not appeal the penalty. Instead, we will direct our immediate focus to this weekend's event in Phoenix and control our destiny on the racetrack." Two things that I hear when I read that statement out loud and hear it back again. Stuart Haas basically says, look, hey, we're not appealing because we know we screwed up. And the fact that they're suspending Rodney Childers for the next 2 races throughout the playoffs, but Tony Gibson's going to be sitting on the box, which is fantastic because Tony Gibson knows how to get stuff done. Also, the 40 points, that's a big deal. Not only is your win not counted, it's counted in the official record. When Kevin Harvick eventually goes into the Hall of Fame, he's going to have that win on his record. What he's not going to have is that 40 points. He's sitting 3 points above the cut line right now, which we'll talk
Yeah.
about when we go into reviewing Texas. This is a big blow. You can get past the $75,000. You can get past having car chief Robert Smith not there for the rest of the playoffs, as well as Rodney Childers. Because look, we live in an electronic age. There's nothing to say that while Rodney Childers is sitting at home, he's not text messaging with the 4 team while the race is going on. Nothing you can do about it. They're
Right.
talking back and forth. He's not going to be at the racetracks, either Phoenix or Miami. You know, it's just there's too many variables here that it doesn't. It affects Kevin Harvick, but it doesn't affect Kevin Harvick in the long run. We're going to Phoenix. The Desert Dominator is the best racer at Phoenix that we have in the field right now. We said it over and over again. We said it in March, and we're going to say it again tonight. It, in most people's minds, it's not a matter of who's going to win. It's a matter of who's going to finish second behind Kevin Harvick. That's not me blowing smoke up my own butt about my favorite driver. That's the stats. And that's exactly what Corey's going to talk about when we get further on, talking about Phoenix and Kevin Harvick. The other big news, I'm going to let you walk into the future of Mr. Martin Truex Jr.
Pretty much this was what everyone expected. Even I expected, like back in August when Furniture Row announced that they were going to be shutting down their operation. So Martin Truex Jr. is the latest driver in the silly season lineup, as he announced that him and Cole Pern are going to be going to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2019. So he is going to be replacing Daniel Suarez in the 19 car. And honestly, like, I'm not really surprised. Like, I knew this was expected, but my question is, like, like, why did this come out now than what it should be? But I think the reason why Gibbs was deciding that, it was going to come out now is because they wanted to finalize some deals and, everything all like good to go. But let's be honest. I mean, I think next year with Joe Gibbs Racing, I think that's going to be the team to watch, because now you got Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, you got Martin Truex Jr., those are guys that have already won races. And then, of course, Eric Jones, those are guys that have won races, championships whatsoever. But I wouldn't be too surprised if all four of those guys make the playoffs next year. But I really want to see how that 19 does next year, even though Suarez has been in that ride the last 2 years. And then, of course, Carl Edwards was in that ride the last 2 years, even though Edwards scored a couple wins. And then Suarez, even though he was brought up too early after Edwards had decided that he was leaving, I mean, I'm not bashing on Suarez, and I'm not like going anything like against him. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Suarez is a really good driver. He's got the talent. He's won an Xfinity championship. And I would have to say, let's say if Suarez does leave, which he is, there is rumors that, he could be going to Stewart-Haas Racing if Kurt Busch decides he leaves and then goes on to Ganassi. But further down the long run, I think Joe Gibbs is going to be, the one to watch for in 2019.
That's a pretty fair assessment when you have that much championship pedigree, and Eric Jones, who, like you mentioned before, has won on each level he's come through. That's a fantastic team.
Yeah.
And to put last year's champion, a top contender for this year's championship, into a Joe Gibbs ride, and you bring the crew chief with him, that's the perfect storm.
Yeah.
It's very reminiscent of the pairings of Knaus and Johnson. It's Childers and Harvick. There are certain teams like Evernham and Gordon back in the day, Larry McReynolds and Dale Earnhardt. There's certain combinations you hear and you just go, oh, that's the one to beat. Rusty Wallace and Buddy Parrott for those 5 years was phenomenal. You couldn't stop them. This is looking like an unstoppable situation, and you're going to see that 19 car of Martin Truex Jr., which, by the way, 19 happens to be my lucky number. So you may see a few 19 gimmicks here or there. I know Emma's going to get her new gear. Chelsea's going to get her new gear on your end of the spectrum there.
Yeah.
So we're going to have some fun with this. And I would say look for that 19 car in the front when we go to Daytona for Speed Weeks and the Daytona 500.
I would definitely agree.
Now, you did touch on Suarez potentially, because we don't know the fate of Kurt Busch going forward. Is he going to come back to Stewart-Haas in the 41? Is he going to be let go, move forward? What is his status going to be? I'm not sure Daniel Suarez is the correct fit for that 41. I thought Matt DiBenedetto would be good, but Matt DiBenedetto is going elsewhere. I could see Cole Custer coming up and sitting in the 41. But if
Yeah.
Cole Custer comes up, you're going to have a situation like we are going through right now with Daniel Suarez. Is it too much too soon?
See, I think with Custer, I mean, even though he already got the win at Texas, and keep in mind, he's one kid that I was watching in the last few years. I mean, I would have to say he's consistent. And of course, last year he not only won Homestead, but flat out dominated Homestead and could have been your champion a year ago had he not been eliminated in Phoenix. But I would have to say that, you bring Cole Custer up in the 41 car. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's going to be a rookie. And of course, he already made a few cup starts this year. And some of those races he ran okay and pretty much like in qualifying and whatsoever. But I would have to say like it depends on if Stuart Haas Racing is ready to bring this kid up to the Cup Series, and if not, he might just be in the Xfinity Series maybe within the next year or two. And you look at Christopher Bell. I mean, he's going to be in the Xfinity Series next year, and then let's say what happens if he decides he wants to go up the Cup, and then when he goes up to the Cup Series, there's not going to be any rides available. So I think if you look at it, I mean, it's going to be a matter of, when these guys are ready to go up to the Cup level. I think you probably have to say maybe the next 3 years, like depending on when all these other guys, you know, decide to hang it up because, some of them, they've been around since like the 2000s and no question whatsoever.
Hmm. Yeah, you don't have a lot of guys that reach back into the 90s, as it were, whereas back in the day, you had guys that were running 30, 40 years in those cars, basically rotting as they're pulling them out of the seat to replace them with a brand new, hot, up and coming rookie. But you're right, guys are retiring early. When Carl Edwards retired, that was a shock. Still a young man, had just come off a couple of really great seasons, one in which he won 9 races. He was that the year he tied with Stewart for the championship. I can't recall.
I know 2011 he was tied with Stewart.
Okay, but then he just says, you know what, I'm retiring. I'm gonna go spend time with my family, do other things. Guys are retiring younger now. You're not going to see too many 47, 48-year-old guys battling for championships going forward. When you look at the list now, and I'm going to it, Kyle Busch is in his 30s. Truex is in his late 30s. Logano is in his early 30s. Harvick is in his early 40s. Kurt Busch hovering around 40. Chase Elliott's 20-ish. Eric Almirola, I believe, is late 20s, early 30s, and Clint Bowyer's in his mid 30s. That's about the prime. That really is the prime of any race car driver's career. You're not going to see too many Jeff Gordons come up and come straight out of the box at 24, 25 years old and light the world on fire. Those days have long gone. Now it's more of a veteran sport. And that's not picking on Jeff Gordon because Jeff Gordon had what it took. I don't know a lot of these young guys can come up and in their first, second, third year of cup competition are going to win a championship like Gordon did.
Right.
So why don't we just move on and go to the Truck Series at Texas? A fantastic last lap pass gives Justin Haley the victory, and it was you on the Facebook machine who said, "Don't be surprised if Justin Haley walks away with this truck championship in 2 weeks." Why do you feel that way?
See, I kind of look at it, and now that Haley and Johnny Sauter are in on wins, I really think this is going to be the preview going to Homestead next Friday because I think if you look at it, those are the only two trucks that I think, have a shot at winning this championship. And of course, Brett Moffitt, given the fact that he has 4 wins this season, I mean, yeah, he has been running consistent so far in the playoffs. I mean, he finished third on Friday, but I just look at it, I think Moffitt's probably going to come in maybe at best third, close third in this championship this year, the way I see it. But I just look at Haley's success in the playoffs, and let's face it, Canada, he ended up sneaking on the win after 2 of the KBM trucks ended up colliding on the last lap. Then on Friday, another KBM truck, Todd Gilliland, runs out of gas, and Haley was lucky on the last lap to overtake the lead and ended up winning. And I just look at it, Haley is just that guy that that he could probably spoil the championship party, no question whatsoever. But I was looking at the race on. And then there was that multi-truck crash that had Noah Gragson and Johnny Sauter, which, of course, I think Gragson only had like side damage, and then Sauter only had a little bit of damage as well. So looking back at that, and even though Sauter finished, I want to say, 11th, I kind of thought to myself, all right, so had Sauter not won at Martinsville and got caught up in that wreck, he would pretty much be in the must-win situation going into Phoenix. And then of course you look at Matt Crafton, he finished ninth, and then Grant Enfinger finished 12th and 13th. Those are the two guys right now that are in that must-win situation going into Phoenix, because right now Enfinger is only 5 points behind the cutoff, and then Crafton has the most work to do because he's only 26 behind the cutoff. So I think if you look at it, I really think you're seeing this championship four pretty much set, with Sauter, Haley, Moffitt, and possibly maybe Enfinger or maybe Gregson, depending on who can get out of Phoenix, successfully.
Right, and you can't predict any better than I can or anyone else can if Brett Moffitt or Noah Gragson is going to have a bad race. Are they going to get caught up in a wreck? Are they going to have engine trouble? Are they going to have pit problems, penalties, etc., that's going to knock them back a lap or two or even out of the race? So a Grant Enfinger or a Matt Crafton can slide their way, whether with a win or on points, which seems highly unlikely, passing either of those two guys to get to the Final Four. I'm gonna tentatively say you're right on. We're looking at the championship four of Sauter, Moffitt, Haley, Gregson. But again, being only 26 and 32 points beyond the cutoff for Enfinger and Crafton, you have a 33 truck field, I believe, going into next week.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so on Matt Crafton's side, it's definitely a must-win situation. Grant Enfinger is going to have to hope and pray and hopefully not knock either one of these two guys for Moffitt or Gregson to have a really terrible day so he can sneak his way in on points if he doesn't win.
Right.
So, all of my math, by the way, that I did for the Cup Series, I'm just letting you guys know I threw it out the window on the way home tonight because I heard about the L1 penalty on Kevin Harvick. Had a fantastic breakdown like I did a few weeks ago. Nope, it's all ruined. Thank you, NASCAR. But we're talking about the Truck Series right now. So, as we know, Justin Haley came home first. Ben Rhodes second. Brett Moffitt third. Todd Gilliland fourth. Hill came in fifth. Harrison Burton. That's a tongue twister sometimes. Harrison Burton. Just call him Harry. Come on.
Yeah.
Harrison Burton sixth. Jesse Little seventh. Stuart Friesen eighth. Matt Crafton ninth. And Noah Gragson rounded out the top 10. Your other notables: Johnny Sauter 11. Grant Enfinger 12. Myatt Snyder 13. Brendan Poole 15th. Nemechek 18th. Going down the list, don't see too many more. Jennifer Jo Cobb 24th. And my man Bolamastis comes in dead last in 32nd. So I just like saying his name, Bolamastis.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us your happy and your sad before we go to pick some points?
So my happy for this one would definitely have to go to Brett Moffitt. I mean, you just look at it. I mean, this truck team is already there, and they finished second last week at Martinsville, and now they finished third this past Friday. So again, it's a good run for the 16 team, and I'm really hoping to see that this team can make a lot of success the next two races. My sad would definitely have to go to not only the one Gilliland of Todd out of gas on the last lap, but also his father, David, who ended up getting into a crash early in the race. And I really thought that, David was going to be a one to beat, or if not, probably had like maybe a top five truck, in the drive in the 17.
Well, we had the same happy. I also went with Brett Moffitt. Eased his way to not much of a cushion, but he did ease a little forward. He's still in second. And again, momentum, momentum, momentum. You need this going forward with only two races left. Even though a 12th place finish for a lot of people would be considered great, my sad goes to Grant Enfinger. He really needed a few more spots, maybe seventh, maybe sixth, what have you. But 12th isn't helping out his cause any. And you're right. I believe he's in a must-win situation going forward as we look to Phoenix this coming Friday. So
Yeah.
we'll go to the points. Johnny Sauter sits in the lead with 31.28, locked into the playoffs. Brett Moffitt second with 31.09. Justin Haley is third with 31.07, locked into the playoffs. Noah Gragson fourth with 31.05. Grant Enfinger fifth with 30.87. And Matt Crafton at 30.82 rounds out your top six as we move forward this Friday to the desert. Now we go to the picks. You had Johnny Sauter as your lock. He finished 11th. You had your sleeper was Noah Gragson. He finished 10th. That's a finish of 21. You divide that in half, and you have an 11.5 for this week. I had Stuart Friesen as my lock. He finished 8th. strangely enough, I took Justin Haley as my sleeper. He finished first. That's a 9, and my finish was 4.5. So had my picks a little backwards, but I still come home with this week's Truck Championship of the World.
All right, congrats.
I take it where I can get it sometimes. You're the stat guy. You should be kicking my rear end every single week, notwithstanding. But now another
Yeah.
last lap pass on the Xfinity Series gives Cole Custer his win and locking himself, from what I can see, into the playoffs this coming 2 weeks from now in Miami.
Yeah.
Now, we already have Cole Custer, and who else is locked in? I believe Reddick's locked in.
So basically, everyone else is all in by like points, or yet again, I think the other three haven't clinched the spot just yet.
Well, it doesn't look like, if I'm reading this right. Oh no, there's a potential for Matt Tiff to sneak his way in on points.
Yeah.
We'll get to that when we get to the points. But fantastic run by Cole Custer. The last lap pass, he only led about 20 or so laps during the race. A lot of guys, 16. A lot of guys led a bulk of laps. When you look at Christopher Bell with 35 led, Daniel Hemrick 42 led, Allgaier with 37, Tyler Reddick leading 54. There was a guy I thought was going to walk away with this race.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't to be. What was your takeaway from the runs by, once again, we're going to look at John Hunter Nemechek, only led 6 laps, but comes home with a 4th place position. Is this kid going to get a full-time ride next year?
So rumor has it, I guess John Hunter Nemechek looks like he's going to be taking over the 23 ride for GMS Racing next year. But I think if you look at it, I mean, top 5, not too bad for that 42 team. And I think if Nemechek, does get that full-time ride for GMS, I think this will be a kid to watch next year. And, he has the talent. He knows how to win races, knows how to go for a championship, whatever, and so forth. The one thing I really had to take away from this race was definitely had to be Christopher Bell, because you just look at the second round and you go back to Kansas a couple weeks ago, gets caught up in a crash. Then you go to Texas, then he gets caught up into a crash again. So now, Bell has to go into a must-win situation going into Phoenix this weekend. And I was kind of thinking to myself, all right, so Bell was dominant in the first round, which of course he won at Dover. Now he goes to the next round where he's just, been, crappy the first 2 races, and now he has to go to Phoenix and try and win it all. But my understanding is even if he gets eliminated, I'm going to be really surprised, because, this is a kid that, it's been the winningest driver so far in the Xfinity Series. Everybody's been pretty much picking him as favorite to win the championship ever since the start of Daytona. But I just look at it, of course, Cole Custer, which I had to say, he's had a consistent year. He's had a couple top 5s. There has been a few races where he could have won, but I think the 00 team, they timed it just right. They passed Reddick on the last lap. And I really think that, if the 00 car, if they could bring the same car that they dominated with at Homestead from a year ago, I think you might see Custer as your champion, depending on if, Allgaier and Hemrick and Christopher Bell, those guys can make it in or not. But I don't know. I mean, I just look at Custer and I kind of think, all right, so I think he's probably going to be maybe the dark horse driver or maybe the sleeper driver that I think would win this championship.
He's certainly a guy that could tip the apple cart for some of these guys. And when you mentioned Christopher Bell, what a streak of bad luck. Comes into the playoffs on a tear, wins at Dover, number 1 in the standings. Now here we are with 2 races left. Christopher Bell sits in 7th. That's a 6-spot drop from where he started. And he's about 40-something points out of first place. If we look at the cutoff line, he's 22 points off the cutoff line. You have to finish in the top half of the field to get in, even on points. But I look at the guys ahead of him. He has 6 wins. Justin Allgaier sits in that transfer position, only cushioned by 2 points, and he had 5 wins this year. Are we watching the mighty fall?
Well, I would probably say maybe so, because there has been a time where, you had a driver that has dominated the regular season and then, of course, goes into the playoffs as the favorite. Next thing you know, they end up falling downhill right when it comes playoff time. I mean, that's what happened to Kyle Busch back in 2008 when he joined Joe Gibbs Racing for the first time. He ended up winning 8 races that season, and it looked to be him, that was going to battle out Jimmy Johnson for the championship. But then once the playoffs got started, the 18 team couldn't rebound, and they couldn't even go anywhere after that. So I think if you look at Bell, I mean, he finished 4th at Phoenix back in the spring. So I think this is probably going to be that track where, he could possibly end up rebounding and could take home the win. But then, of course, you got Justin Allgaier, who has won at Phoenix before. And let's face it. I mean, I think this is going to be these both drivers, I think, are going to be a one to watch come Saturday.
If there's going to be a spoiler, a champion that we didn't see coming, I know we've talked up Justin Allgaier a lot. We've talked up Christopher Bell a lot. I know you said Cole Custer. If that's your final answer, I'm good with it. Is he the dark horse to win the championship?
At this point, I'm going to say yes.
See, I was going to go a different route and just going by, the tracks that we're going to next and the fact that he really needs a big boost, a rocket strapped to his butt as he moves up to the Cup Series next year. I'm looking at Daniel Hemrick. He might surprise a bunch of people and hoist that trophy come Saturday night in Miami 2 weeks from now.
I would say so, too. I mean, I just look at Daniel Hemrick this year, and he's another guy that I do expect him to win a race before the season's out. And I think he's came close, I want to say maybe 4 times this year, 5 times. I mean, the only one I could probably go back to would have to be maybe Kansas when he dominated most of the race. And I mean, he had everything right except, pretty much restarts pretty much duped him after that. And then, of course, Texas this past weekend, he had a good shot at maybe getting a top 5. And then he ends up getting into a wreck late in the race.
We still came home in 10th, which is not bad. We'll go to the finish right now. As we mentioned, Cole Custer comes home in 1st, Tyler Reddick 2nd, Austin Cindric 3rd, John Hunter Nemechek 4th, Justin Allgaier 5th, Brandon Jones 6th, Matt Tifft 7th, Elliott Sadler 8th, Spencer Gallagher, he of I'm leaving and retiring at the age of 4, comes in 9th. I know he's not 4, he's probably like 26. And Daniel Hemrick rounds out your top 10. Other notables, Ross Chastain was 11th, Mike Lynette 16th, Joey Gase 22nd. Going down the list, there's not too many others. Alex Labay 30th, Christopher Bell 32nd, Bobby Earnhardt 34th, Jeff Green 38th, and the only reason Jeff Green didn't finish last was because Morgan Shepherd threw the wingtips on again and finished 39th. If I could start this one with happies and sad, I'm going to give a dual happy. One to Cole Custer for winning the race and stamping his ticket, but the other one goes to Tyler Reddick. That 2nd place finish puts him at the top of the points. Basically, I'm not saying he's in, because when you look, I mentioned before, the line between 6th and 1st is only about 24 points. A bad day by Reddick this coming weekend in Phoenix could knock him from 1st all the way to 6th, and he misses his spot. My sad's going to go to Christopher Bell, obviously. Not the best day for this kid. Once again, 6 wins on the season, but he's sitting in 7th and really is in a must-win situation to move forward. My opinion, because the 3 guys ahead of him, being Allgaier, Tifft, and Custer, aren't going to get out of his way just because he wants to get to the Final 4.
Right.
So what do you got for happy and sad, my friend?
All right, so for my happy, I would definitely have to go to Tyler Reddick because good run for this 9 team. And, of course, he is on top of the point standings. So, again, I did not expect him to go to this round, but I think if you look at it, I mean, he could possibly change it into a win maybe this weekend, but great job for that 9 team, and I think this will be a one to watch. My sab would definitely have to go to Christopher Bell because, again, the first 2 races he hasn't done that great, and now he's got to go to Phoenix in a must-win situation. So just see what happens Saturday with the 20 team.
Amen. And now we go to the points. As we mentioned, Tyler Reddick sits atop the points with 3105. Elliott Sadler is 2nd with 3098. Daniel Hemrick 3rd with 3097. Justin Allgaier is in the swing position in 4th with 3085. 2 points behind him in 5th is Matt Tifft. 4 points behind 4th is Cole Custer in 6th, but Cole Custer punched his ticket. He is going to Miami. Christopher Bell 7th with 3063, and Austin Cindric looks like the odd man out in 8th with 3036. Is there a guy from Tifft, Custer, Bell, and Cindric? Let's take Bell out of it. We know Bell can win on any track, anywhere, at any time.
Yeah.
You take Cole Custer out of the mix because he's won. He's punched his ticket to the championship four. Tifter Cindric, who's your dark horse?
Um, I would have to say by looking at both of these guys' stats this year, I'm gonna have to go with Tift.
I'm going to agree with you. He's got the best chance going forward. He could really upset the apple cart for a lot of guys. I'm looking the way I look at it right now. I'm seeing the championship four this way. You have Reddick already. You have Custer. Elliott Sadler knows his way around Phoenix. I believe he's won there in the past.
Yep.
He'll be in. Hemrick's got a lot to lose and more to gain with a win than anybody else. I think you're going to see Reddick, Sadler, Hemrick, Custer.
I would probably say I think, if Reddick does have a great race, I think he could possibly make it in. And then Sadler, I would definitely love to make him love to see him make it in as well. But I don't know. I mean, I think if you just look at it, Christopher Bell, you know, he's gonna make that shot at winning the race this weekend. And he's gonna be tough to beat. I mean, I do want to see Bell make it in. I do want to see Allgaier make it in too. And like I said, it's gonna be very interesting to see, who's in, who's out. But I think if you look at it, let's say if Tyler Reddick does go to the championship four, I don't see him as my champion. I mean, I could probably see maybe Allgaier, Sadler, Hemrick, or if Bell does make it in, I would have to say Bell.
Okay, fair enough. And
Yep.
that's where we leave the points and we go to the pits. Not the best week for Mr. Corey Huffnagel. He took Christopher Bell as his lock. He finished 32nd. He took Daniel Hemrick as his sleeper. He finished 10th. That's a 42. You divide that by 2. Corey, your finish this week was a 21. I also had Daniel Hemrick, but I had him as my lock. Once again, he finished 10th. But strangely enough, I took Cole Custer as my sleeper. He finished first. That gives me a finish of 11. You divide that by 2, and it's 5.5. You may never see a week like this again out of me because Stat Guy just seemed to be sleeping last week, thinking more about No Shave November than he was about his picks going forward.
Right.
That's all right, dude. I get it. I understand. I might shave for November just to piss a bunch of people off. Stop laughing. All right. So the AAA Texas 500, which we've spoken about ad nauseum at the beginning of the show, Kevin Harvick puts on a clinic once again. 177 laps led. He comes away with the victory, then the penalty, as Corey's fond of saying, whatsoever, because Harvick looked amazing throughout that whole race. And if I can throw a couple other names out there, I also thought that Brad Keselowski had a fantastic car. Joey Logano was really great, and Ryan Blaney as well. The three of them, Logano led 54. Keselowski led 50. Blaney led 40 laps. They were the only guys that could come close to doing anything to stop Kevin Harvick. But in the end, it was a Kevin Harvick world, and we were all living in it at Texas. Then came the penalty. I'm still hanging my hat on 8 for 4, 9 if you count the All-Star race. It's been a dream season, championship or no championship. I've had fun this season watching Kevin Harvick just go out there and be the driver I always knew he could be. Having said that, though, one of the people I had a real bad taste in my mouth with was Joey Logano. Seemed he got into a little skirm with Almirola this weekend, and Almirola was not happy. Tell people what happened.
Yeah, so what happened was it happened on a restart, and the one thing I was kind of confused at the most was, both drivers didn't get at it with each other, and what had happened was, they were both going into turn 3, and then I guess what happened was, it was either Almirola trying to pinch the top of the 22 car, whatever, or he was trying to get like a side draft. And what happened was the 10 car got loose, chased it up the hill, saved it. But then kind of confused me the most, and I was questioning about was, why was he talking on the radio saying like, oh, if that's what Logano wants to do, then come Homestead, he's gonna understand why. But I think if you look at it, I mean, both of them didn't run into each other. I mean, it was just hard racing. That's the way I see it. And, I think when Almirola looks back at the replay, or if he sees anything whatsoever, I think he'll certainly understand. But that was probably the one thing I actually kind of questioned at the most. And, but No, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, him and Logano, and I wouldn't consider them rivals, no question about it.
No, and I think that maybe Almirola is thinking too much about what happened in Martinsville with Logano and Truex. Was Martinsville, correct?
Yeah.
Thought so. And immediately, the minute the 22 gets into somebody, somebody's going to cry foul. Oh, look, he's doing it again. Look, none of these guys are saints. We've talked about it last week when I went on my rant, and you somewhat agreed with me. None of these
Yeah.
guys are saints. But just because you made contact doesn't mean at this particular race that Joey Logano was doing anything other than trying to hold his line. I think Almirola might have stepped a little too far with his comments, but we're going to see what the next 2 weeks have to bring for these gentlemen. Was there anybody other than, say, Kevin Harvick? Because, and we talked about it in text message, we talked about it earlier in the show. Was there anybody that stood out as to say this guy could have won this race handily?
Yeah, I would have to say, I'd have to say maybe I could probably say Ryan Blaney. I mean, he was one guy that, that had a really good car and, had a really good restart, could have maybe side drafted for on that last restart. But I look at Blaney and the 12 team. I mean, they had a really good run. And other guys I could probably look at, yeah, Logano, I'd probably say yes. And then, Eric Jones, I'd probably say yes too. But, yeah, that's probably the only car that, that was the challenger this weekend was the 12th.
I'll agree with that. Even though Keselowski had a fantastic run early on in the race, late race troubles and failure to just find a partner to draft with, it really cost Keselowski a lot in this race. I felt bad for Martin Truex Jr. Just couldn't find it all day. And for what it's worth, probably still has a bit of Martinsville on his mind.
Right.
Didn't get to see the 78 and the 22 get near each other, which I was kind of upset at. But then again, Logano was up front most of the day with Harvick, Blaney, and the others. I was really impressed, though. I got to say it once again with Chase Elliott. Just he didn't lead any laps, but he was never far from the top 10 most of the day. Didn't have any pit problems. It's just this kid is figuring it out, and we knew he would. So he could be someone that spoils the apple cart once we talk about the points, because I believe, if I'm looking at this correctly, he may be a win to get in situation.
Absolutely.
So let's run down the finishing order. Once again, Kevin Harvick comes home first, Ryan Blaney second, Joey Logano third, Eric Jones in fourth, Kyle Larson fifth. Sixth place goes to Chase Elliott, seventh, Kurt Busch, eighth, Almirola, ninth, Martin Truex Jr., and Austin Dillon rounds out the top 10. Your other notables are Brad Keselowski in 12th, Alex Bowman 14th, Kyle Busch 17th. Not the best day for that 18 car. We go down the list a little further. Clint Bowyer 26th, Denny Hamlin 30th, and our boy Matt DiBenedetto comes in 38th. And because we always mention last place, good old Corey LaJoie gets our participation trophy of the day, finishing 40th. So it's hard for me to pick any other happy than Kevin Harvick. Had fun watching this race. Wasn't his most dominant performance, but when he got out front, there was no touching him. And now we know why the spoiler was jacked around with. But I think, spoiler or no spoiler, Kevin Harvick really did have the car to beat. Fastest in practice all weekend. The pre-shows were talking about it. Every driver in the garage was picking Harvick to win. My sad's going to go to Clint Bowyer. 26 is not the place you want to be when you're battling for a spot in this Final Four championship run. He is definitely the one that is in the most must-win position going forward. He can't point in. The cutoff spot currently sat with Kevin Harvick at 41.03. He is 49 points behind that mark. I'm sorry, 51 points behind that mark.
Yeah.
So Bowyer is in a must-win situation to get in to the Final Four to go to Miami. Bad day for him. If he could have made a few extra spots, I don't know. He could have come in second. He still would have been behind Eric Almirola in the points, but just not the day Clint Bowyer wanted to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So my happy, I would definitely have to go to. I'm gonna have to go with Chase Elliott because you look at a great run for that 9 team, and I think this is gonna be one team that I think is gonna be one to watch, especially now that we're going to Phoenix. And I think if you look at it, Chase would definitely have to win the race, in order to advance. Or, other than that, I think he's probably maybe in good points position, if I'm not mistaken.
He's only
Uh,
15. He's only 15 points behind the cutoff at this point.
okay, so let's see. To make up points, that would have to be a race. So yeah, he's definitely going to have help, or he would have to win the race to advance. The way you
Hmm.
look at it. So my side, I definitely have to go to Clint Boyer as well because I am disappointed of this 14 team. They haven't been running good this round, and this was going to be one that I would have to say that could spoil that championship for. But I think if you look at it, him too, he's going to have to win on Sunday as well.
And I'm going to give a participation trophy, Sad, on behalf of both of us because we haven't talked much about this particular driver since probably March or April. But Bubba Wallace, 25th. I don't think Bubba Wallace has sniffed the top 15 in months. Just a real disappointing season for this kid. Had high hopes. I think we both did. But unfortunately, it's not happening for him.
Right.
Do you think he's in danger of losing his ride, or is this year a learning curve and next year he bounces back?
I think this year is a learning curve, and he's definitely going to bounce back for sure. And especially, when he had that second place run at Daytona, yeah, I thought he was going to do a lot of good things. But, then yet again, like, once you're racing in the Cup Series, it's a long schedule. And of course, the races are long too. So I'd have to say that, once he goes back next year, I think he's going to figure this out.
Okay, I like it. So let's go to the points, and then we'll go to the picks. Kyle Busch leads the points with 41.28 in first. Martin Truex Jr. second with 41.25. Joe Logano third in points, 41.19, but he is locked and headed to Miami. Kevin Harvick is in fourth with 41.03. Now, the point differential between first and fourth right now is 25 points. Not the most insurmountable of odds. But then consider in fifth, Harvick's teammate Kurt Busch is only 3 points behind him with 4,100. That's the one we got to watch this weekend is Kurt Busch.
Yeah.
Below him in sixth with 40.86, a win to get in for Chase Elliott. Seventh, Eric Almirola, 40.68, win to get in. And Clint Boyer rounds out your top eight with 40.52, obviously win to get in. Chase Elliott could possibly point in if three out of the drivers ahead of him, not named Joey Logano, have a really terrible day. I think Kyle Busch has nothing to worry about. I think Martin Truex has just slightly less to worry about. Obviously, Logano, ticket punched. If we look at these three drivers that are within 18 points of each other, Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, who are we looking at as the fourth member of your championship four with Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, and Joey Logano?
Yeah, this one is a tough one. Well, obviously, of course, you think of Phoenix and you think of Harvick. So I'd have to say, after that win, there's no doubt that, Harvick is going to rebound this weekend, is going to end up winning because let's be honest. I mean, you go to Phoenix, you know how many times he's won there before and so forth. But what's actually kind of different about this time around than when we went back in March is the start finish line is at a different location. And of course, now it's at the start of the dog leg. So pretty much instead of the backstretch, the dog leg now is going to be the brand new front stretch going into turn one. And then the old front stretch, which now is going to be the backstretch and so forth. But I think probably moving the start finish line down to the dog leg, it's going to make things very interesting. But then yet again, I think like, when you see a lot of passes on that part of the racetrack, let's be honest, everybody cuts down on the bottom and then tries to come right back up in the new turn one and so forth. But I think if Harvick, has a really good day, I'd say from the start of practice to qualifying and then race setup, you name it, I think he's your fourth guy.
I agree with that, but if there's one guy that's going to tip that apple cart for Kevin Harvick, it's going to be Kurt Busch. As much as I would love to see Elliott or Almirola win the race, punch their ticket, go forward, it's Harvick's track. They call him the Desert Dominator. I've said it in jest. I've said it with fluff in my chest to piss off my other NASCAR friends. I said it earlier on this show. They don't ask who's going to win at Phoenix. They ask who's going to finish second behind Harvick.
Right.
every pre-race show for the last 4 years. It's Kevin Harvick's track, and I think in the last 4 years he's only lost or not come in first in one race at Phoenix over the last few years. It's been Kevin Harvick land, and it will continue to be. You can move the start-finish line as long as they don't repave or reconfigure the track. It's still a Kevin Harvick track.
Right.
All right, so now let's go to the picks. We have Corey, who took Kyle Busch as his lock. He finished 17th. He took Kurt Busch as his sleeper. He finished 7th. And Kyle Larson as his hopeful. He finished 5th. That's a total of 29. You divide that by 3, which I did wrong. Holy garbage. Did I really do that? I almost pencil whipped you. That's not good. Let me do this all over again. Da-da-da-da. Okay. So your finish this week was not a 13. It was a 9.6. A very close margin. I had Kyle Busch as my lock, 17th. I had Chase Elliott as my sleeper. He finished 6th. And my hopeful, I had as Kevin Harvick first. That's a 24. You divide that by 3. And my finish was an 8th. My first ever sweep of the picks with all 3 series. God gave rock and roll to me, and I will use it as I see fit going forward as the sweep champion of the world. I feel like the Red Sox right now. Just want to say that. I know that's hard for me to say, but now we move on to Phoenix. We've talked enough about Texas. Let's move on to Phoenix and the Truck Series Friday night. Corey, you know what to do and how to do it.
All right, so Friday night you have the Truck Series, Lucas Oil 150, which will be 8:30 Eastern Time on FS1. So you could stream it on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I can't even do this with a straight face. So Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, which of course the Motor Racing Network,
the voice of NASCAR.
They will be there this weekend. So looking at the entry list, I'm going to read off the playoff guys first. So let's see. You have Brett Moffitt, you have Noah Gragson, you have Johnny Sauter, Justin Haley. Let's see. Matt Crafton and Grant Infinger are your playoff guys to watch this weekend. So other notables, I got some very interesting ones to point out. Let's see. Sheldon Creed is going to be in that 2 truck, which of course he had a really good run this weekend. Todd Gilliland, and then of course John Hunter Nemechek, Jennifer Jo Cobb. You have Maya Snyder. This one's also very interesting as well. Guy who's driving the 15 truck named Stephen Parsons. So Stephen is the son of Phil Parsons, which of course he ran in the truck race in Bristol a couple months ago, which we will be back with Jay Robinson Friday night. And another guy that will also be a one to watch and will also be fun to watch is none other than Derek Kraus, who is going to be making his Truck Series debut from the K&N Pro West Series, driving for Bill McAnally Racing in the 19 Napa Auto Parts Toyota. Then you also have Tanner Thorson in the 20 truck. Then you have Austin Wayne Self. Tyler Dipple, who's going to be in the 25 truck. He is another one from the K&N Series. Jason White, I think he's been around the Truck Series for a really long time. And I remember, I think back in like 2009, I think he was driving at the time and so forth. Let's see. Ben Rhodes, who is not in the playoffs anymore, will be one to watch. Christian Eckes in the 46, DJ Kennington in the 49, Harrison Burton in the 51, Stuart Friesen, Riley Herbst in the 54, Joe Nemechek in the 87, and last but not least, you have Chase Purdy in the 99.
Chase Purdy.
Yeah.
All right. As much as I would like to pick Apollo Creed to win this race, he's not going to be in any of my picks. I took 2 guys that really need a win to cement themselves, to lock themselves into the playoffs. And they're really the 2 guys that we are both looking at as championship 4 potential. So my lock is going to go to Noah Gragson. The trucks didn't run at Phoenix earlier in the year, so there was really nothing for me to go back and look at past performance. So, but Noah Gragson just seems to come out of nowhere and surprise people every chance he gets. That's why he's my lock. My sleeper is going to go to Brett Moffitt. I mean, the kid's already got 4 wins. That 5th win to move him into the championship 4 would be tremendous. So those are my picks for Phoenix this weekend without much homework to be done. Noah Gragson, Brett Moffitt.
All right, so my favorite, actually my lock this weekend. I think I'm going to take a step at this one. So my lock, I'm going to go with the Ford Todd Gilliland because I really want to see this truck team win. And it was very devastating for him, to lose the race on Friday night, especially on fuel. But I think this is probably going to be one track where I think Gilliland, could probably have some really good success at, because when he used to drive in the K&N series, I mean, he was driving at 1 mile tracks, short tracks, whatever it is. That this driver that is the one to watch that could possibly win. So I think Gilliland, could possibly get that win before the season's out. So that out of the way, he can learn a lot of stuff for next year. My sleeper, as I mentioned before, my sleeper, I'm going to go with Derek Kraus because I really want to see how he does in the truck series after racing for the K&N Pro West series, and not to mention, I think he won a K&N West title this year. So Kraus is going to be one on my list to watch.
Spell it.
Kraus. Kraus.
First name.
Derek.
Derek, okay. If I don't know it, I have to ask for spelling. So Derek Kraus, Sleeper Jones, got it. All right, so the Xfinity race on Saturday.
Okay, so Saturday, I believe at 3:30 Eastern time, you have the Xfinity guys racing at Phoenix. I don't know why this is not. I don't know why this is not loading quick enough.
Because you have my internet tonight.
Yes.
Obviously.
Let's just. But anywho, let's see.
While we're waiting, because dead air is a problem here on professional broadcasting.
Yeah.
If you guys want to have some fun, don't forget Championship Sunday. We are starting 30 minutes before the green flag drops at Homestead Miami Speedway. The first time ever Corey and I are going to record this show in the same place. I did a guest spot on his NASCAR IndyCar Central way back when, and he did a short spot on the Loki and Jabroni Show page, and then we started this, whatever you want to call it, this foray into talking NASCAR, and we're having a good time with it. But we're going to have so much fun at Marcus Zarju's mini mansion in Uncasville, Connecticut. It's a bring your own beer situation, but you guys can only be there via the magic of YouTube. Eddie Focus will be there producing the show. Corey's going to sit with this highly professional rig that we use every single week. We're going to have fun. We hope you join us.
Definitely. So I got it back up. So let's see. Saturday, 3:30 Eastern time. It is the Whalen Trusted to Perform 200 on NBC. You can stream it live on the NBC Sports app, and then of course the Sirius XM NASCAR Radio channel 90, which of course the Motor Racing Network,
the voice of NASCAR.
So they will be going 2 for 2 this weekend, pretty much. So let's see, going down on the entry list. Let's see, I'm going to go with the playoff guys. So I'm going to go with Cole Custer, Elliott Sadler, Matt Tiff, Justin Allgaier, Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, Austin Cindric, and of course, I believe that is it. Other notables, you have, let's see, you have Shane Lee, you have Michael Annett, Ross Chastain. You also have Ryan Truex, Ryan Reed, Ryan Preece, Brandon Jones, Spencer Gallagher, Joey Gase, Ryan Sieg, J.J. Yaley, John Hunter Nemechek in the 42. Let's see, Jeremy Clements, Ty Majeski, Morgan Shepherd, and then, of course, Stephen Light.
Okay. So I looked at the Phoenix results from earlier in the year. I believe it was in March. And I looked at a bunch of potentials. But the ones that stuck out to me the most that I'm going to use in my picks are two guys that seriously need a win to get in. Because the point differential from first to sixth, where Cole Custer sits, but Cole Custer, with his win, is locked into the playoffs, is 22 points. Anything can happen. So if one of the big guys, Sadler, Hemrick, Allgaier, Tift, has a bad day, there's room for somebody to slip in. So my picks are going as follows. My lock is going to be Justin Allgaier. Finished second there in March, had a pretty decent run and a win. Obviously, he of 5 wins, second best on the series in wins. would definitely cement him going forward, not only as the championship board contender, but next year being the one to watch as an early favorite for the championship. My sleeper is going to be Daniel Hemrick once again. He finished sixth there in March, really good run, but he needs something because next year he's going up to the Cup Series. When you move up and you have a championship under your belt, much like Christopher Bell did moving from trucks to Xfinity, had the big championship under his belt from the trucks, won 6 races on the circuit, but right now he's teetering. Hemrick can use that momentum going forward next year on the Monster Energy Cup Series.
All right, so my lock for this weekend would definitely have to go to Christopher Bell. I mean, the winningest driver in the Xfinity Series this year, is only one race away from being eliminated. So I think if you look at it, I think this is going to be a Christopher Bell race. He just has to get his timings right, and he just has to start, be a better racer more and, try and get up near the front, lead laps. And I think this is what Bell has to do this weekend. He has to win, and he has to run up front all day, dominate, and win. That's all he's got to do. And I just think, Bell is going to get to that championship four, no question about it. So my sleeper, I am going to have to go with Tyler Reddick because after finishing second at Texas, I really want to see what this 9 car can do, not only this weekend, but also next weekend at Homestead if he does able to make it in.
All right, big question. I know you're picking Bell as your lock, so you have a lot of faith in him to win and get in. The only other driver locked right now that I can see is Cole Custer. Am I right? Who else is locked in? No one.
No.
Okay. Here comes the $1 million question.
All right.
Who's tipping the apple cart, and who's your final four going to be?
All right. So my championship four is definitely going to be Christopher Bell, Justin Allgaier, and let's see. I know Custer's already locked in. So my fourth guy, this one's going to have to be a tough one, but if I'd have to pick one right now, Elliott Sadler.
Okay. My four looks a little different. I have Cole Custer, Tyler Reddick, Elliott Sadler, and I really do believe, unfortunately, when I look at the streak of bad luck that Christopher Bell has had over the last few races, I just think as much as I'd love to see him go back-to-back with a Truck Series title and an Xfinity title, it's not going to happen. I think Justin Allgaier is going to be there. I think Hemrick is not going to have the best day ever, although he's in my picks. But I think Allgaier is going to be that guy.
Yeah.
So that being said, we move on to Sunday and the Cup Series.
All right, so Sunday, 2:30 Eastern Time, will be the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, Can-Am 500, 2:30 on NBC, and of course, stream it live on the NBC Sports app. And then, of course, Sirius XM satellite radio, which you have in your car, channel 90, which, of course, the guys from the Motor Racing Network.
The voice of NASCAR.
They'll also be there this weekend.
All right, so why don't you lead off the Cup Series? I'm very curious as to how you see this playing out this weekend.
Okay, so my lock for this weekend, man, my lock for this weekend.
Don't do it.
Honestly, I'm gonna have to say this. I mean, I know this is gonna be a Kevin Harvick race, but if I'm gonna have to pick one guy that's gonna challenge him for that win, I'm gonna have to go with Kyle Busch because Phoenix is a really good racetrack for him, and he's won a couple times there before. So I think if you look at it, I think that 18 team, will give him enough pressure this weekend, no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
So my sleeper, I'm going to have to go with Jimmy Johnson because, let's be honest, I really want to see him win a race before the season's out. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna be able to win this year or it's gonna have to wait until next year. But Phoenix is also a track where I think Jimmy's won there like 4 times, and he hasn't won there I think since then. So hopefully he can get a win maybe this weekend or maybe next weekend, whatever it is, and so forth. My hopeful as far as I want to pick him for this one, my hopeful, I'm going to go with Chase Elliott.
Okay. Well, we only mirrored one pick because, oh God, there's nobody else. In my opinion, there's only one lock, and we're as many years as we're going to do this show. Hopefully, when we go to Phoenix, my lock will always be Kevin Harvick. It's not a homer pick. I'm working the stats, kids, and the numbers don't lie. It's a Kevin Harvick racetrack. He just excels there. He ran there on the K&N Series, the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, the Cup Series. Always finds victory lane. When he doesn't, he's always in the mix. My sleeper is your hopeful. I took Chase Elliott. He was third there in March, had a really great run. I thought he could give Kevin Harvick a little something, but I believe we talked about it back in March that Chase Elliott, had he won that race, it would have busted him wide open, but we had to wait a few more months longer to get Chase Elliott to victory lane.
Yeah.
My sleeper came in seventh in March, ran a really good race, didn't lead any laps, but again, momentum, momentum, momentum. And if we want to go back to the last few weeks, my sleeper is going to be Eric Almirola.
All right.
So now, the mighty question. We have one driver locked into the playoffs. He being of Middletown, Connecticut, the town I work in. His name is Joey Logano. We've already talked about the points being between Kyle Busch and Kurt Busch, only 28 points first to fifth. Chase Elliott, win to get in. Eric Almirola, win to get in. Clint Boyer, win to get in. Is there anybody that's going to upset this apple cart? And who are your championship for, in your opinion?
See, I think probably the one guy that could possibly pull up the upset would definitely have to go with Chase Elliott because, he's on a high string of momentum as of right now. And after winning the race at Kansas a couple weeks ago, I kind of look at it and I just say, you know what? I think he could possibly challenge the big three and could get a spot in the next round, no question about it. But I think as my championship four goes on as it is, I mean, even though Joey Logano is already locked in, I still see the big three still going. But now you got Harvick, which of course now he doesn't have the benefits to advance. And then of course you got Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. Those guys are barely in by like a couple points. So I want to say the big three does make it in, but there is going to be some different scenarios that goes in this. And of course you just never know what's going to happen. So I want to say it's going to be the big three, or it's probably going to be two of the big three that'll make it in. But honestly, like that's literally all I can think of as of this point.
All right, slightly different question.
All right.
Of the big three, who if the
Yep.
season ended right, if the race ended right now, if we didn't have Phoenix and you took your top four, Busch, Truex, Logano, Harvick, and they went on to Miami, that's one thing. But we still have to run Phoenix.
Right.
Is there one guy in that four that we both have the same final four? Logano, Kyle Busch, Truex, Harvick. Which one of those guys has the potential to have a bad day out of Kyle Busch, Truex, Harvick, win to get in Jones, that could have a bad day where Kurt Busch could sneak up and ruin the entire thing?
See, I think if you look at it, I'm gonna have to say Truex because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you go to Texas. I mean, he had a really good shot at winning the race, and then he had the penalty for driving too many pit boxes, which that had to take him to the back, and
Yep.
then rebounded to finish ninth. So, but I think if you look at the 78 team, I mean, they have been kind of okay during this playoffs so far. But as I'm looking at the results as of right now,
Mm-hmm.
so you look at the start of the playoffs. If you look at it, third at Vegas, third at Richmond, 14th on the Roval, 15th at Dover, 23rd at Talladega, and then the last three races have been pretty much fifth at Kansas, third at Martinsville, and ninth at Texas. So if you look at it, their only worst finish right now in the playoffs has only been 15th. But other than that, I'm sorry, actually, the worst finish is 23rd. But other than that, they have been right there. But then yet again, I think this is probably going to be maybe that team that could maybe make a mistake. I'm not really sure, but we just have to see what happens.
If in the event that Elliott, Almirola, or Boyer do not win, and Truex has a bad day and Kurt Busch moves forward, I think the complexion of Miami changes tremendously because Kurt Busch, again, former champion, 2004 champion, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, um, a vet. He knows his way around these tracks. Really, really tenacious driver. That could be a guy who could spoil everything and potentially be that dark horse, where did he come from champion going forward.
Yeah.
All right, so now is the time where I ask Corey, do you have anything to pimp, plug, or otherwise push on the people?
All right, so keep following us on the C&J Speedway review. We are on YouTube, so just make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, so then that auto way you get notifications of when we go live and when we upload our episodes, everything else, and so forth. Keep following us on Facebook. Make sure you guys look us up. Make sure you follow us, like us, whatever. Let's see, Instagram, follow us at CJ Speedway, and then Twitter, we are at CJ_Speedway. And let's see, other than that, I got literally like nothing tonight to pimp out on, but besides the fact that next week I'm going to be turning 26.
Happy
So
birthday.
that's going to be it's going to be a big moment. So I'm
Now,
really excited.
are we moving recording next week to facilitate you going out and engaging in debauchery?
So I would probably say next Thursday we would do the show.
We will discuss that further and we will let you guys know. And of course, Championship Sunday, Corey and I, 30 minutes before green flag, we are going live, bringing you flag to flag coverage. First ever NASCAR podcast to do so. Please join us. And Corey is dying as we speak. Not sure why. But once again, thank you all for joining us. He's Corey, I'm Chris, and we are out.
Good night.